Hello and welcome to this special dialogue organized by the Geneva Association on Leadership. I'm Cecilia Mazeka, AIA's Director of Group Communications and your moderator of what promises to be an insightful conversation on what it takes to lead an insurance company through political, economic, and social turbulence. Global instability has tested the resilience of many businesses, economies, and communities alike. In the face of these obstacles, insurance leaders must demonstrate remarkable adaptability. Today, we bring you leading voices of senior leaders from Argentina, Lebanon, South Africa, and Sri Lanka, who will share their insights with you. They are Chathuri Munaweera, the winner of the 2024 Women in Insurance Award, who led AIA Sri Lanka through one of the most difficult economic periods in the country's history. Bongani Madikiza, CEO of South Africa Retail Mass, Sanlam. Alejandro Simón, CEO of Sancor Seguros and Geneva Association Board Member. And Carl Tachdjian, General Manager of MetLife Lebanon. Thank you to all of you for joining us today and everyone who have tuned in to this webinar. Now, before we start the conversation, a few housekeeping notes from me. I will moderate our panel for 40 minutes, followed by a 20-minute audience Q&A. You can submit your questions by clicking the Q&A icon. To activate translations, you can click on where you see Show Captions and select your preferred language. Now, let's get started. I'd like to begin with a question for all our speakers. Each of your countries has faced unique economic and political challenges. Can you briefly describe and give us a snapshot of the biggest challenges your country has faced in recent years? Let's begin with Chathuri, followed by Bongani, Alejandro, and Carl. Chathuri.
Thank you, Cecilia and the Geneva Association. It is a great privilege to join this panel and open the dialogue with you. A warm hello to everyone joining us from across many geographies and time zones. In answering your question, let me take you back to 2022. Sri Lanka had just come out of a very tough pandemic, but at the back of it, we were entering into a worst economic and political and social crisis that's ever happened in our history. The government declared bankruptcy. There was a crushing national debt. There was hyper interest rates, hyperinflation. And not only was the cost of living sky high, but essentials like food, medicine, fuel, and even gasoline, they were simply not available. The political unrest was filling our streets. It was like a perfect storm that brought everything simply to a standstill. That was also the time I was stepping into my role as the CEO. Not only me, most of my leadership team who were new to the role were stepping in at that time. So leading at that moment was not just a baptism of fire for us. It was like leading from the deep end. We had to learn quickly and make hard choices every day. Some of it went right, some of it did not go right, but where it didn't go right, we had to bounce back fast and keep focused on protecting our people, our customers, and the financial health of our business. So first it was about survival, and then building hope, and slowly how we then started scaling our business. So thankfully, dialing forward to today, the crisis has settled now. Despite everything, we managed to grow our business by twofold in those 2 years. But more than the numbers, this experience really shaped me deeply, not just as a leader, but as a person. To lead with purpose, not just with a plan, stay grounded, build trust, find strength in my team and lead with them. And some of these and most of the things I've learned so far, it still guides me every single day I lead.
Chathuri, what a story. Your journey of survival, hope, scaling the business growth, and rebuilding trust and your own personal leadership development, all of that in a short space of time. Thank you for sharing that. Bongani, can you tell us what has your challenge has been in the past few years in your role?
Thank you, Cecilia, and hello, everyone. The country that we have, that we've all aspired to have after the advent of the Rainbow Nation, has somewhat been betrayed in recent years. We had a hope for a very equitable future for all South Africans. However, that promise has not been fully realized. And this has particularly been acute through unemployment and youth unemployment in particular, which then presents a challenge of growth for businesses in general and our business in particular. We've had a deterioration of infrastructure. We now have power outages that, South Africans even call, they've now got a terminology for it. And it has disrupted daily life, impacted productivity, and increased operational costs. I think the University of Western Cape in our country has said that 70% of small businesses collapse as a result of all of these new operational costs, which means being able to fix the problems is becoming even more acute and difficult. Having said that, similar to Chathuri's story, I think what we have focused on is innovation and how we can bring our people into the innovative space, how we merge digital with humanity, how we get to customers as opposed to waiting for customers to come to us. That has been the way that we've tried to lead out of this crisis. We've tried to be a bit more responsive to what our customers require. And that is quite important because it brings humanity to the fore. It reminds all of us that regardless of the challenges we may have in business or in life, if you focus on the humanity, it builds value, it builds productivity, and it enables our communities to have hope. So that has been our journey, Cecilia, so far. Thank you.
Wow. Innovation and humanity coming from a backdrop of challenges like youth unemployment, infrastructure challenges, rising operational costs. That's really quite a handful of a number of really challenging issues. Thank you. Let's go to Alejandro. Please give us your perspective.
Hello, everybody. First of all, it's an honor for me to share this panel with my fellow colleagues, and thanks to the Geneva Association for inviting me. I would say that instability is the great problem for Argentina for the last, I would say, 90 years, particularly regarding political instability, economic or macroeconomic instability, and the weak rule of law, specifically regarding contracts and property rights. That made us to become a country struggling to maintain our middle income level after being one of the richest countries in the world until 1930. We were one of the 10 largest economies of the world before 1930, and we had a level of crisis, a recurring crisis, almost once every decade, and the situation is now exactly the same. In 2023, we faced an inflation rate of 270%, 25% in an only month. Poverty reached more than 50% of the population, and well, it was a nightmare to deal with all the consequences this have also in terms of social instability. And after the stabilization program that we are going into these days, the recession arrived, so it was a complete nightmare. And well, I think that that's the problem. Of course, we had to face a lot of challenges that we had to deal with everywhere as COVID-19 and its consequences. For example, the fecundity rate and the birth rate dropped by 30% in the last 5 years. That makes impose a great tension to the social system and the annuities programs. But for the long run, well, I think we will be talking about all this in the next minutes. Thank you.
Yes, we will. You know, so far, all of the lessons that you've shared have really come from many of the challenges that you've gone through. Let's hear from Carl.
Hi, Cecilia. Before I answered your question, I wanted to take the opportunity to mention how grateful I am to be part of this panel and able to share my experiences with the audience. I can say, similar to Argentina, Lebanon has been unstable for many years, close to 50 years. But as most of you might already know, Lebanon has faced an extremely challenging few years, marked by a series of crises that began in 2019 and continues to this day. In the second half of 2019, we had mass protests against corruption and economic mismanagement. These protests were soon followed by a COVID-19 pandemic in the early 2020, which added immense stress to an already struggling healthcare system. On August 4, 2020, we endured the devastating Beirut port explosion, which caused widespread destruction and loss of life. During the same period, we experienced significant political instability with frequent government resignation and political deadlock. The presidential seat remained vacant for more than 2 years, which obviously worsened the situation. All this political turmoil led to an economic collapse, resulting in severe currency devaluation, hyperinflation, default on debt, unofficial capital controls, rising unemployment, and increasing poverty. If all this wasn't enough, the war in 2024 caused widespread devastation and extensive displacement of civilians in the south of Lebanon and the suburbs of the capital, Beirut. As you can imagine, these events has had a profound impact on the country, the overall insurance industry, our employees, our partners, and our customers. Similar to Chathuri, I had just joined in Lebanon operation in 2018, so just 1 year before it all started. And the past 6 years have been, and still is, an amazing experience and a continuous learning for me.
Wow, quite a start to a new role and the things that you had to face. Let me follow up with Chathuri. How did you manage to ensure financial stability of the company while continuing to support policyholders during those volatile times?
Okay, thanks, Cecilia. And so much similarity in all of our stories, and I really enjoyed listening to them. Onto your question, I guess as we all can agree as insurers, the very foundation of financial stability is trust. And in a crisis, it is the trust that gets most tested. So for us at that time going through this, the question was, how do we stay financially strong, while we're still standing by our policyholders? Just many actions took place, of course, but let me just concentrate on 3. First, and this must be most basic in all of our 4 jurisdictions, we wanted to protect our balance sheet. That meant, it's basic, but that was the most important thing. That meant we did not wait for things to go wrong. We monitored our capital, our liquidity positions daily, not weekly, not every 2 days, not monthly, but with laser focus. We managed the monitoring daily. And I must also say that this is not out of panic, but it was a discipline that we were getting into because we didn't want to, to be caught off guard. And it did happen. I mean, we evolved into a very governance-led practice where we had a special task force dedicated for that, and some of us were members in that. Many things like you would do, like we stress tested many solvency scenarios. We prepped for all manner of worst case situations. We adjusted our asset allocations. And of course, we had to keep a very healthy liquidity buffer because we would still get high claims during this time, and we would have surrenders and lapses to manage, and that those risks needed liquidity. And we wanted to also keep aside some money for business opportunities that would come our way. And that level of vigilance, like we didn't do it at first, we evolved into it and we learned as we went along. But that level of vigilance helped us to maintain, I wouldn't say adequate, I would say very high capital adequacy ratios when you compare with the regulatory minimum, which was around 120%. Ours was at its peak more than 4 times more than that. So that balance sheet protection was very important to us. Secondly, we were also very careful about our investment decisions. So when the markets were volatile, I'm sure this is the case in most other markets that we are talking about today, interest rates were sky high, and it was very tempting, honestly, to go for short-term, high-yielding instruments, and they were flooding the market. But for us, it was the shareholders' money, it was our policyholders' money, and it was our responsibility to protect them. So our number one focus was not really investment return. Our number one focus was capital preservation, and that led us. And investment returns was the second. So each investment decision that we had to take, we looked at it from this risk lens. So there was a process that we adopted for it. As I said, we didn't have it at the beginning, but we learned with our mistakes and we got on to it to take a long-term view. We did, even with such a conservative approach, we managed to deliver good returns. We did not do portfolio investments, but we did business investments. So it wasn't that as if we were not doing investments at all. And third and the last, it was very important that we protect our in-force book, and we continue to also write new business, because like every single premium that we get is really a sign that our policyholders continue to trust us through the crisis, and we monitor this, and that motivated us each renewal, each new business, when we took a stock in regular intervals. And also similarly as a commercial organization, in terms of maintaining liquidity, cash collection was our oxygen, and we wanted to keep that flow alive. And like I said, there were mistakes that we learned from, and we bounced back quickly. But some of the actions worked very well, and we managed to preserve the trust, preserve the financial stability, while also, as you said, serving our customers and protecting their interests. And as we go along into the crisis, that gave us the confidence that we were stable, and we are able to grow our business in Sri Lanka.
Alejandro, what's your perspective on that question of how you ensure financial stability? Chathuri talked about this focus on vigilance. In your experience, especially having to deal with hyperinflation.
Mm-hmm. It's true, these were difficult times, and as Chathuri mentioned, the problem is to protect the balance sheet and the level of protection for our customers. We had, of course, our revenue was decimated by inflation. As I mentioned, 25% in 1 month, and in terms of loss cost, it was more than 60% in 1 month in lines like motor. and we had to switch from a regular annual policy scheme to a monthly policy scheme. So we were able to adjust and to put higher prices in a monthly basis, and not having to wait for the annual renewal, not only for the policies that were meant to renew in a specific month, but for the whole portfolio. And the same we made with the sum insureds and the protection of our customers. At the same time, we had to apply interest for late payments. Imagine that a week late payment could wipe out with the results of more than 1 year. So it was absolutely necessary to do that we had never done before, and at the same time to negotiate with the banking system in order to charge credit cards weekly instead of monthly as we used to do. But at the same time, the government shut down imports, and that was a problem again in motor. As we repair cars, we don't only pay for the loss, but we also repair the cars, and we didn't have spare parts in order to do that. Because of the close of imports, as I mentioned before, the prices of these elements went up by 60%. So imagine to put prices 60% higher in a specific month. So that we had to react very quickly to that problem. We had the advantage that Sancor Seguros is the leading insurance company in Argentina. So in some way, all the other players were waiting to see what we did, and perhaps we had to take the responsibility to lead the market in that sense. But at the same time, and because of the ban of the access to the foreign exchange market, the FX, there was a problem to pay reinsurance premiums. So we had to ask the reinsurers not to pay us claims, you're hearing right, in order to have some currency abroad in order to pay for future premiums. So of course our reinsurers didn't understand what we wanted to ask them, but the idea is just don't pay us, because if we get the money inside Argentina, we will not be we will not have the possibility to pay reinsurance premiums in the future. Of course, there was a problem also with lines in which the sum insured are subjectively defined by the insured. Like in life, you don't have a problem of claiming cost in life because of inflation or almost hyperinflation, but the revenue is dropping, and when a death arrives, of course the money the family gets is not enough as it is supposed to be. So we had to put a program of leverage the insured sums every month, and well, time by time the situation started to improve. We had a change of the government in the middle. The new government started to stabilize the economical situation, and well, as I said before, recession came, and with that the lack of purchasing power of the population. But of course, the situation is now much better, with an inflation rate of 2% monthly, which is really high. But compared to what we had just 1.5 years ago, it's much better.
Yes, it's all relative, but quite an improvement. Thank you, Alejandro. Bongani, let me switch focus to you. Crises don't just impact business; they also deeply affect employees. In your experience, how have you ensured a workforce resilience and an engagement with your people, especially in difficult times?
Cecilia, this is probably the most difficult part of leading. It is appreciating that people are under increasing pressure, financially, emotionally, and just logistically, to be able to show up, both physically and to be able to deliver at work. So I think that was one of the big things. When you are unable to work from home, when everyone else is able to work from home because you have power cuts, it's you see that as you are being, you are being denied an opportunity to work in a manner that is going to be beneficial to you and the organization. And I think one of these operational challenges are deeply human stress points. They show up in in mental well-being for our people. They show up in the morale, and ultimately they show up in productivity. So it's important that we appreciate that you can't now manage the same way we used to manage in the past. We now need to show up as leaders who appreciate the human experience, who appreciate that for people to show up, they need to be better human beings at home for them to be better employees at work. So we become more involved in how we help employees from a mental health point of view. It is now core to how we drive business continuity. And then it talks to how we connect with our people, how we build connections, not only when people are at the office, but when they are offsite. How do you ensure that there is continued connection? But for me, at a personal level, the biggest lesson for me is that you can never be able to pour from an empty cup. So you need to make sure that as a leader, you recognize that your tone reverberates across the organization. So if that energy is negative, it impacts the whole place. It erodes morale, it kills value. So I think that has been how you go and replenish yourself, how you ensure that you are on top of your game before you try and rally other people, because they can see when you're not being authentic. They can see when you are not bringing your humanity, your human self. So I think that has been a very big lesson for me during these times. And these are the things that I think as we go through pain points as leaders, we need to remember that our pain, our strength reverberates through the organization and how we show up.
Yeah, it's really important to take care of yourself, especially in that senior leadership position. Carl, how does that resonate with you? And I really want to invite you to share your experience, how you manage through the challenges with employees, through the power of communication, support programs, especially to help people with mental wellness.
Yeah, thanks, Cecilia. As I noted, the series of crises in Lebanon definitely it took a toll on our employees. While as a company, we couldn't prevent this crisis, our focus from day one was on trying to take quick decisions that we can support all our team members through every challenge and try to make it a bit easier on each. To do this, as you mentioned, a robust communication plan was critical, especially since most of our employees were working remotely from the early days of the crisis. So this plan didn't only include communication from the company, but also ensuring that each of our leaders spend time on a regular basis to touch base with their team on one-to-one basis. This really allowed us to reassure our team, show empathy, and ensure we put the mental health of our employees as a top priority. I can give you a couple of examples here. One example was we recognized early on the need for professional mental health support during these challenging times. We initiated a coaching program in 2019, initially focusing on supporting women and mothers as they were impacted the most, which was later expanded to all our employees. These workshops and support were led by certified positive psychology and wellness coaches, focusing on different topics such as mindfulness, preventing and managing burnout, personal stress and coping mechanisms, codependency and self-love, and so on. We just had one of our sessions today morning. The amazing feedback we received from our participants led us to continue investing in these sessions for the past 6 years. They significantly improved our employees' well-being and productivity and brought them really close together. Another example is from last year's conflict in 2024. In addition to sending formal, timely updates to our employees about the measures the company was taking to support them, we held regular virtual coffee chats with the sole purpose of checking on each other. These sessions provided our employees with a safe space to openly express their fears, concerns, and feelings. This direct communication helped them feel heard and supported, offered comfort in knowing that they're not alone in this dire situation. Everyone is going through the same tough period. So I really strongly believe that by fostering open communication and providing continuous support, we have navigated this crisis together, emerging stronger and more united as a team. Our experiences have shown that even in the face of adversity, a supportive and resilient workforce can really overcome tremendous challenges, and we can keep on going.
Thanks. Chathuri, let's just go back to the fundamental power of insurance. You know, in crisis periods, customers rely on insurance more than ever. In your experience, how have you ensured uninterrupted customer support and engagement?
Okay, that's a tough one. But you're absolutely right, and Alejandro also touched on this. In a crisis, what we also saw is that the customer relies on insurance more than ever for protection and also for reassurance. But there was a dilemma because cost of living being so high, many people simply, couldn't afford to keep paying the premium, even if they wanted to. It wasn't in their bucket list of items that they had to spend for. And we also had the dilemma of some customers who, didn't have a claim would come to us and say, look, I want my money back. I want return on premium because I need that money to live. So we did face all of those challenges. For us, that was where our purpose was getting most tested as well. Like at AIA, we want our people to live, healthier, longer, better lives. So we had to step up. We couldn't just reject, saying, look, if you cannot pay the premium, the policy would lapse. So if you cannot revive, sorry, we cannot continue. We couldn't take that stand because this mattered most. So what we did, so many things, but first thing that we decided was we took a decision to hold cover at times. So we gave our customers some breathing space with their financials, and we did cover them. And we were aware that when you take a decision like that, there was going to be obviously a hit on us, as well as certain claims we may have to pay that we wouldn't pay in a non-crisis situation. But it's something we did consciously. And as one of the speakers, the panelists mentioned, humanity comes first here. We did also have many special revival programs running to keep protection in place. So we've had teams allocated just for those. Another thing that we faced is even when you take our product line, we've had situations. We're a life insurer, but we were also into investment solutions. And with the very high interest rates, some of our solutions became untenable overnight. And our agents, our insurance advisors did not have a portfolio to sell. So we did have that happening as well. What we did was, that was the status quo, and we didn't take chances with high interest yielding, very short-termish products. That wasn't the way we went. But we did see some opportunities that we could extend to our existing customers as well as new customers. For example, in Sri Lanka, health is either you get your health the support either from the government or from the private sector. And if you go to the government, it is free. Government hospitals offer you health care free or subsidized. But government could not cater to this with the crisis. So there was an opportunity for us to step in to fill part of that gap, because previous to the crisis, we were not a big health insurer. But we started during crisis to offer affordable health solutions with our life protections to our existing customers, and they remained in our books because they knew how important health insurance was, and also to our customers who came in new to us. Digitalization played a key part in maintaining seamless customer service. Thankfully, we have made early investments into digital infrastructure by then. During COVID, we were also working from home, so it was important that time we made the right investments, and that paid dividends. But as Bongani also said, technology was not the only answer. Your people had to make that difference to make the customer support and the engagement really seamless. And it was important for us to also note and be conscious that our people too were facing the same challenges that our customers were facing. So, and we've had many staff who would tell us, look, there's no electricity, as I heard with the other markets as well. So we would work in the night. So our policy was, okay, work during your clock. And they would spend that time, their night time, where the power cuts were not there, to serve the customers, send those emails, send those SMSs. And that was not in their job description. That was purely their commitment. And not only our internal staff, even our sales people, their income dropped, but they stayed close to the customer. They checked in on the customers, they offered guidance. And we also had a lot of training tools, real-time updates, situation handling that we offered to make sure that our staff, our teams were ready to provide that level of support to our customer. So it was through obviously digital agility, and with that the human courage and deep care. That's the fundamentals that has got us through the uninterrupted engagement that we gave during the hardest of times.
All right. Well, let's go to some questions from our audience. And I want to invite Bongani to address this question. It comes from Mpumi from PPS. The question is, what are the best practices for managing performance in times of crisis? Something that you touched on earlier.
Thanks, Mpumi, for the question. I always say to people, this sounds like a cliche, but a unified executive team is the first start of managing performance. Because if the executive team has got different ways of measuring performance, just as a start, it becomes a problem. The second thing is to be able to set standards so that, and then communicate the standard so that employees understand what is required of them and understand how they would be empowered and assisted to be able to deliver on those standards that are required. And the third thing is critical. How do we support people? People wake up with different problems at different times. We need to be able to find a way to support them on a daily basis. So the structures that Carl was talking about are the structures that support employees as we deal with performance. You need to be able to balance how you take care of people, because that's the only way they are going to show up as their full selves. And that's the conversation that we've been having on the panel. And it's quite important that set standards, be clear how to manage performance, be clear that you are one team, but most importantly, provide the support that is required for people to deliver.
The next question that's very interesting, it comes from Thomas from EXA. The question is, in your experience, how important is it to do a post-crisis analysis? People are often very relieved to move on, but how important is it to reflect and draw out the lessons from what you've just gone through? Alejandro, maybe I can invite you to address that.
Thank you. Well, of course, you have to learn of crisis. You have to transform crisis into opportunities, and especially to do that in emerging markets and volatile markets is especially complicated, but more necessary than ever. I mean, leadership in emerging markets needs to be agile, to be adaptable, and fast decision making. That's it. Transforming crisis into opportunities, and for that you need to have strong stakeholders relations. I mean, of course, with the population in general, with your customers, with your employees, but even with your competitors. I mean, what we think it's called competition, to cooperate with your competitors when it comes to the benefit of the whole market and of the whole economic situation. You need long-term vision, pragmatism. Empathy is more important than ever, and it's far beyond technology, but you need to combine technology with empathy and understanding people needs and people feelings. And that's critical, I think, for sustaining trust and engagement. Technology, including AI, is vital in order to boost productivity in markets where the need of competitive prices, considering purchasing power of population, is more important than any other place. Also, it's key for tracking customer life cycle management, and well, you have to play a vital role in economy. Insurance companies are the institutional investor who can deal with long-term investment that are needed in our countries for infrastructure, for example. And I think that resilience is, if you have to summarize, resilience is what we need in order to improve.
Well, this question has also come from a member of our audience, and it is, we've seen a sharp rise in so-called fraudulent transactions. How is this impacting your business, and what measures are you putting in place to curb this? Maybe I can invite Carl. Do you have a
Yes.
perspective?
Yeah, Cecilia, I mean, fraudulent transaction has definitely risen in the past few years, and I can, mention in Lebanon we've had the risk heightened as much more, specifically with the economic crisis. I think that we had always strong measures on this. We had always strong controls and risk assessment, so we monitor this on a regular basis in our normal days. But obviously, our vigilance has increased. And we question more whenever we have a transaction we don't feel uncomfortable. We have more guardrails to ensure that these controls are effective and those fraudulent transactions don't go through.
Thank you. Chathuri, let me give you this question. Desiree from Prudential wants to know, the industry needs to do a better job of promoting its societal role to policymakers, regulators, and society. How can this be achieved? Not
Good
an easy
question.
one either.
Not an
Yeah.
easy one. Yeah.
No.
I think somebody, one of the panelists also mentioned about competitors coming together. And I think we are at a stage where we shouldn't just wait for the governments to support us. We shouldn't wait. We should just wait for the high tax rates and things like that, but really come together and as an industry, as hypothetical as it may sound sometimes, to support common causes, to do research, to see where we need to be present. Now, if you look at countries that we come from, there's a very low level of penetration of insurance. And there is not enough support, not enough probably investments coming into countries like ours. Obviously, there's a crisis and a lot of organizations would not want to take risk. But insurance as a whole, as a global need, would require that we come together and support each other, not just focus on few bigger nations, bigger countries, but more so for the countries that need it most, where most of the population are. And I think that is needed, and that's a global obligation of all insurers. Geneva Association is a great example where they act like a think tank for all of us, where we benefit from the knowledge that they impart.
A similar question related comes from Tatiana from AXA. She wants to know, how can insurers build trust and public-private partnerships in underinsured markets facing civil unrest and climate-related risks? There's a lot of complexity to this question. Bongani, may I invite your view?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Tatiana, for the question. As an insurer, at the end of the day, we sell a promise. Other people walk in, they get into a supermarket, they get bread and they walk out with bread. We sell a promise that when the customer is faced with a certain risk, we will stand up and help the customer at that time. So it is critical that you are not only seen as an insurer at the time when you need to do the same. You are seen as an insurer, as a participant in the communities that you serve, because then people will have a connection with you and will know that when they have an issue, you will step up, you will come forth and be part of the community. We have just had a crisis in one of our provinces in the country, and our organization stepped up. We did not ask, where is the government? Why are they doing this? Why is it not happening? And that's what it's about. It's about showing up so that you are part of the community and they see you as part of them. And if they see you as part of them, then the relationship will be built over time. And as you want to do business with them, they see you as a business partner as opposed to someone who just wants to exploit them. So that's quite critical for me. Thank you.
Well, this question comes from Manuela from IAIS. And the question is, what has been the greatest challenge during a crisis situation, and how can staff remain motivated throughout? Can I invite Carl to address that?
Yes, Cecilia. I think we discussed a lot about this. I think the greatest challenge is to take care of our employees, because eventually they're the ones who are delivering to the customers. So as I mentioned in my previous talk, what we need to do to ensure our employees are first safe, taken care of, and are able to perform at their best, while we know they're struggling at home and economically and politically, they're under pressure. So this is very important to keep our employees, take care of them and communicate with them regularly, and ensure that they are able to support and serve our customers. So I would believe once we do that, once our employees are in the best state of mind that they can be, that's how we can manage all the other challenges with our customers and in the community.
Chathuri, I think this question is fitted for you. In crisis, many consumers face legal challenges. How can they make use of legal protection insurance?
Yeah, I mean, legal challenges come from the fact that there's a loss of trust with the insurers and what we supposed to deliver, whether we deliver to their satisfaction or not. Legal challenges can also come from the fact that there is an understanding mismatch of what what the solution offers and what you really get. So there's a responsibility on the insurer as well to make sure that awareness is created beyond looking at it as a legal case, but to actually create that awareness. And there's a role that the regulator also has to play in making sure that obligation is met, that there is that transparency, that communication is there. So it's a collective effort by all to first make sure that the customer understands what the customer is buying. So at the end of the day, when it's time to claim what you bought, there's no mismatch of expectations. And I think that's critical. Not much work that has happened in that area, and that's why we do have regulators complaining that a lot of insurers, have very what I would say is not very robust claims management processes, not very robust dissonance management processes. So there is work for all of us to do to create that awareness, build that trust for the customers so they believe in the insurance system.
Well, just a couple more questions left. Alejandro, let me give you this one. It comes from someone who's watching. How do you set direction for your organization, given that many of the challenges you face are often beyond your control or influence?
Well, you have to. It's a great question, and you must lead your company. I mean, we have more than 3,000 employees, 15,000 agents, and of course, when you have to take decisions, mostly tough decisions, you feel, I would say, as in pandemic, perhaps one of the hardest challenges we all had to face, but in particular in my case, was leading the company and taking these kind of decisions during COVID-19. You can maintain, and we did it, virtual meetings with all these people, almost 15,000 people through the country and in the region. And you should give an impression to be calm, to be confident. And of course, when you shut down the screen, you have the same problems, the same fears and uncertainty than everybody else, especially in a situation that was not lived before in our lifetimes. So it's the decision-making process is hard everywhere and in every market, especially the very competitive market where trust is involved and everybody is looking to what we do. And perhaps when you have populism in your governments, they want you to give answers that we are not supposed to do and to pay more than what policies says we should pay. And that's a great problem. But as I said before, you are alone when you take decisions. There is a loneliness situation of making hard decisions, but you must be empathic, and you should try to give your best, and considering all the situations you affect when taking decision, and that's a big number of people.
Well, before we wrap up, let me ask a final question to Carl and to Bongani and Chathuri. As a leader, what has been your single biggest personal challenge and lesson that you can leave your audience, our audience, with having gone through the various challenges and crises that you have as a leader in insurance? Carl.
Yeah, Cecilia, I think Bongani and Alejandro already highlighted this. Really navigating through a crisis is never easy. And as a leader, the weight and responsibility can be overwhelming. Personally, my greatest challenge has been ensuring my mental health remains and under the huge personal and professional pressure. Both my family and my team look to me for strength, solutions, critical decisions. So it's incredibly challenging to inspire confidence and provide stability in an environment where everything is highly uncertain and you're really not in a good state of mind. So the one lesson I would like to leave the audience with is the importance of self-care, especially during crisis situations. To effectively serve and lead your team, you really must first take care of yourself. My team knows this very well. I spend every morning around 90 minutes exercising, meditating, reading, and preparing for the day ahead. This routine grounds me and prepares me for, as much as possible, any unexpected challenge that the day may bring upon me. So by taking care of my mental health, I have been able to provide the strength and stability my team and family needed during this challenging time. So really remember to lead others, you must first lead yourself.
Bongani.
I completely agree with Carl. So that's the first thing, Cecilia, that I would say it is important. Take care of yourself. The second thing is, when we're dealing with a crisis, we always want to show up in strength. We always want to show up as in control. My limited experience has taught me vulnerability also helps to rally the team, for the team to see that you are also one of them. You also have the same weaknesses and development areas that they have, and then you can grow together as the team. Thank you.
Chathuri.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Carl and Bongani both. The biggest challenge in the crisis was carrying the weight of uncertainty, making decisions, everything when everything felt uncertain, because you're also personally going through the crisis as everyone else is. And as Carl said, finding that inner strength, that inner calm and peace, and finding your own, comfort group to rely on is important. I mean, you're not alone. You need to lean on your team. They're wonderful. They compliment you, and they, we carry along together. So, lastly, for me, the key lesson that I've learned is that you don't have to lead with perfection. Like Bongani said, vulnerability, that is very important. And you need to also lead with clarity. Clarity that even you don't have the answers. That is also clarity. And you need to have that clarity when you're leading through crisis or otherwise. And obviously courage to face it and see it through when you don't know what's going to happen at the other end. And as we've heard so many times, humanity, you got to put your people first. Because they will not remember you, I think, for the strategies we put forward, but they will remember us for the emotional presence we gave them. And for me, that's been the biggest learning. Thank you.
Alejandro, thank you, Chathuri. Alejandro, a final word of insight and encouragement.
I think everything was said. With my colleagues were very clear. I think the situation is we are different countries, culturally very different countries, but we have something in common. This is instability, and perhaps in Argentina the problem is going from an extreme to another extreme when a government says this is the way, and mostly in populism, then the following government will say exactly the opposite, and you stay stuck at the same place because you can move forward. But that's not enthusiastic. But I think that we survive, we struggle to be successful in our markets, and you have to be open-minded, you have to be agile, and I think that the world will be better if we struggle to be better with our companies, with our colleagues, with our employees, and with the community in general.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for all your great insights. And congratulations once again to Chathuri for being the winner of the 2024 Women in Insurance Award, inspiring all of us. In fact, the nomination process for the 2025 award has just opened, with nominations due on the 15th of September. Allow me to thank all our panelists for all their thoughts today and your contributions to the dialogue. And thank you to everyone who have tuned in online. Until next time, I'd like to express deep appreciation to the Geneva Association for organizing today's fantastic dialogue. We hope you have enjoyed it. In a moment, you're going to see a survey pop up on your screen. Do share your feedback. I'm Cecilia Mazeka from AIA in Hong Kong. Thanks for watching.